Fuck you.
That's how you do it. How are we doing? How's everybody's night going? How's their Friday? How's their post-Valentine's Friday? It's been exactly a week, I think. It's hard to breathe in. You sweat your ass off. Yeah, this. You can breathe in it, all right?
I can't see shit. It's got two of those like plastic visors, and it's just the slit right here. That's all I could see. No peripheral. No, I can't see like past like there. It sucks. You probably can't even hear me very well.
And then we're going to pull up. We've got quite a bit on the docket today. I've got several videos we're going to take a look at, turn that into multiple videos that I can feed off of for the next week. Because it's Valentine's, we're going to be looking at a video about male friendship and gayness. We can mute that now. Let me bring up this. We're starting with the gay video because Valentine's Day was just recently, and I figured if there's any place that's a good place to start, being gay for Valentine's would be great. This is a video that was recommended to me by Hudson in the Discord. As always, if you want to recommend me a video to watch in streams and shit like that, join the Discord. It's linked in all of my videos. It's completely free. It's not like a membership thing. There's a channel in there called like Virtual Drama, or like there's like a React submission. You'll see the channel. You can read, hopefully. And you could drop videos in there. Shared that character nomination they had for 2011 where Marcus is much happier in that one video than the entirety of Gears of War. Are you talking about like that? I have no idea what the context of that was, where he's just like smiling and shit. I know it was like some sort of ad, but it's weird to see him smile. By the way, merch drip for this video, I'm wearing my Buster black and gold shit. This, you can see it here. It's got the B, like the logo on the channel, but it's gold. The gold stuff, by the way, I'm totally upfront with this. It's upmarked to shit. It is like every item is like a 10 times upmark. So if like a sweater is, I don't know, I normally put them on there I try to go as low as possible that I can. So it's like between 27 and like $35 or whatever. The sweaters are $100. They're way overdone because the whole point of all the merch that I have on my stores is to donate the proceeds to charity. So the gold stuff, the elite stuff is upmarked for, I don't know, the suave of it, and you're donating more to charity. So I think the Epic team for Gears of War said they even headcanon that Marcus doesn't even smile at his birthday celebrations. He would be that guy. So we're going to get started with this. This is a video by Geeky Stoics. It was recommended to me. I think this was just last year, because he put this up a month after Pride Month. He specifically mentions it in the video. I watched like the first... It's only a 10-minute video. It's not super long. I watched the first like 2 minutes of it. It's kind of condescending, and I think I obviously haven't gotten to the end. I don't know what the creator's full point is, but the impetus that I was starting to get from looking at the first 2 minutes of this video is that this guy, Geeky Stoics, is upset that people will kind of headcanon or kind of push the kind of ideas that like certain characters, because they are very, very close friends and they are male, that they, you know, they were roommates thing, that they call them gay or whatever. And this creator has an issue with that, which to some extent, I obviously understand. Like it is a, kind of like an opposite effect of like what toxic masculinity is. Because when you think of like toxic masculinity, the idea there is that men have to be so bravado. They have to be pushing out this constant image of being machismo that any kind of vulnerability you share with your other friends makes you gay. It makes you weak. It makes you a little wimp. It makes you a little dick sucker, right? But then like on the opposite side of that, you have like the very, very over woke, I fucking hate the term woke now, the over woke style of things where it's like if you have two men that are vulnerable and are very, very close for each other and have that kind of friendship love for each other, that they must be gay because otherwise what else is it? Which, I mean, yeah, there is some truth to that. But generally, when it comes to like the kinds of I guess you would call them ships, that like this creator is going to talk about, like Samwise and Frodo, I have not seen many people, like, I have read all the Lord of the Rings books. I love Lord of the Rings, the movies, the books. I share a birthday with Frodo and Bilbo. Of course I'm fucking attached to these goddamn stories. But I don't think it's like some secret that people like ship Sam and Frodo together. That's been a thing forever. I don't think it is Tolkien's intention for them to be kind of having that romantic love for each other. They have very much like a strong, like, shoulder-to-shoulder brotherly kind of love, which is a great thing. It's a very, very healthy thing for two men to have that kind of shared bond. That being said, the people that generally make that kind of distinction about Frodo and Sam are either A, not taking it very seriously, and they are just kind of either projecting themselves onto the characters so that they can better kind of put themselves in the shoes of the characters, or kind of just like fucking around with it. Like I've seen Sean Astin Sam in several interviews and stuff going like, we'll never know, wink. Like, that's not him saying that Frodo and Sam are gay. That's him kind of just like playing with the idea and being like, who knows? They're fucking hobbit elf people from the middle of England. They live in a hole in the ground and they have hairy feet. Whether or not they are bumping uglies, I don't think matters all that much. And focusing too much on that, to me, comes off more as like insecurity. That like you're so worried about vulnerable male friendships coming off as gay in that toxic masculine kind of way, that when you have this kind of like playful woke, they were roommates kind of thing, you get defensive about it. And that was the kind of energy I was getting from the first 2 minutes of this video. The second kind of person who makes that kind of distinction with these characters, though, tends to be like teenage girls, which, I don't know, in my day-to-day life, I don't really concern myself with the opinions of teenagers, or like children, like literal children that are just talking shit on AO3 or whatever fucking Tumblr, TikTok forum discussion bullshit. Generally, that's like the two kinds of people I've seen talking about this kind of thing with characters like Sam and Frodo. Neither of which I really think deserve that much attention. They're kind of just like a throwaway kind of issue you might like mention offhand or whatever. But that being said, I don't think it's like an irresponsible thing to like kind of like have this discussion and like talk about that nuance. But because that nuance exists doesn't mean that you need to boil it down into being black and white, which we will see with this creator. He's going to quote C.S. Lewis and the four loves, the four leaves, whatever the fuck the book is about him talking about like love between different people. He's going to quote the beginning of a passage by C.S. Lewis and kind of use it as a justification without bringing in the nuance that same passage talks about. So I'm going to stop yapping. This is a 10-minute video, and I've been sitting here talking for like 5 minutes before we even get into it. So we'll just start the video. All right, Buster, buddy, start the video. Okay, we'll start the video. I'm going to have to pause it about 10 seconds in, but we're going to start the video.
Those who cannot conceive of friendship as a substantive love, but only as a disguise of eros, betray the fact that they have never had a friend. Fellas?
So, he's using that quote from one of C.S. Lewis's, it's a passage from C.S. Lewis's The Four Loves, to say that if you attribute really, really close friends as lovers, then you yourself have never had a friend. Saying that the only kind of people who would say that Frodo and Sam are fucking are the kind of people who don't have any real friends. Which is very, very disrespectful to the rest of that passage and what the fuck C.S. Lewis was saying in the passage. Hold on, real quick, because I have receipts. Here's the full passage by C.S. Lewis. So, you could see he quoted this first sentence out of like 2 paragraphs. If we go through the rest of this, we could see what C.S. Lewis said entirely about kind of this topic about the intersections of love and friendship. I'm going to go through this kind of slowly. The rest of us know that though we can have erotic love and friendship for the same person, yet in some ways nothing is less like a friendship than a love affair. He's basically saying, I want to translate this into English, to layman's, because this is very like poetic language. Obviously, he's saying you can have romantic love and like a friendship kind of love for the same person, but friendship is nothing like romantic love. They are kind of diametrically opposed. At least that's what like Lewis is presenting here. Lovers are always talking to one another about their love. Friends ever hardly about their friendship. Lovers are normally face-to-face, absorbed in each other. Friends, side by side, absorbed in some common interest. Obviously, lovers, they're like, you are obsessed with your lover. Whereas friends, it's like you have something you're bonding over, and that's what kind of like brings you together. You know, when you're in love with somebody, you're hanging out, you're sitting at a park bench, and you're like smooching, making out, whatever. With your, when you're with your friends, you're hopping on the game playing Helldivers. You're not like, you very rarely are ever going to sit down and be like, hey, buddy, what are we? Obviously, it's not really how a lot of us go through our friendships. Above all, eros, while it lasts, eros meaning like romance. That I don't remember where it comes from. It might be Latin, whatever the fuck. Eros, which means romance. Is necessarily between two only. But two, far from being the necessary number for friendship, is not even the best. And the reason for this is important. And then he goes on to talk about how friendship is inclusive, where love is exclusive. Which, to me, the whole idea that he like uses this thing to say, if you mistake friendship for love, you're a loser who doesn't have any friends. That's how Geeky Stoics is using this quote. He says, he's using the beginning of that paragraph to say, if you think two people that are really close friends have to be lovers for them to be this close friends, you don't have any real friends to like relate to in that way. But in the passage from C.S. Lewis, he talks about how a more romantic love is inherently inclusive, and a more friendship type love is or a romantic love is exclusive, whereas a more friendships type of love, a friendly bond, is inclusive. Because if you have friends, you can invite more friends. You can play Helldivers with one person, or you can play Helldivers with 2 people, or 3 people, or you can play with 8 people and have a bunch of different people in a bunch of different games. If you're making love, normally there's only 2 of you. I mean, for some people, that number goes up exponentially. If you're Bonnie Blue, it gets fucking insane. But for the most part, romantic love is always going to be exclusive because, you know, people want to have, like, their partner. With friends, you're never going to be, like, hanging out with your friend and you see your other friend hanging out with a third friend and you're going to be like, fuck that third guy. Because if you act like that around your friends, you're not going to have friends for very much longer. There's no, like, exclusivity contract with friends. Otherwise, you're dealing with some, like, high school level drama, and that's not very important. But the reason why I, like, double down on that distinction is that he uses this passage to say that, like, mistaking friendly bonds for love is done because you're stupid, but a lot of the different relationships he's talking about here are friendships, very, very tight friendships between 2 people. Like, obviously, if we look at the Fellowship of the Ring, you have Gandalf, Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn, Boromir, Sam, Frodo, Pippin, and Merry. Obviously, they all share some level of, like, friendly love. Some of them are closer to others, like Legolas and Gimli, or Aragorn and Boromir, briefly. Spoilers. Or like Gandalf and Frodo and Sam, Merry and Pippin. They all kind of have these pairs. Obviously, that's that kind of like friendship-based, inclusive love, where it's like everyone in the fellowship cares about each other. Where you get that like sweet moment in, what the fuck is the guy's name? What's the movie guy name? I'm forgetting it. From the end of the movie in Return of the King, where you have Aragorn shedding a single tear, Viggo Mortensen shedding a tear and saying, "For Frodo." Like, that's that kind of inclusive friendship-based love. But at the same time, when you look at Frodo and Samwise, they definitely have something that is more intimate than anything they have with the rest of the Fellowship, with really anyone else outside of maybe Sam and, like, the wife he goes on to have. Which really hurts, because the original meaning of C.S. Lewis's passage here that he is quoting is talking about the nuance between romantic love and friendship-based love, how there you have to, like, take into account these nuances of, like, inclusivity and exclusivity in them. But he takes this quote and he just, like, completely reduces it to, if they're friends, they're friends. If they're friends, they don't have to be gay. And it's like, well, things are shades of gray. We're people. We're not fucking machines. We're not ones and zeros. There's definitely an element of both that exists on different levels. Like, obviously, I don't think Sam and Frodo are going to get married. I don't think they're going to be butt-fucking in the forest. They're not going to go Brokeback Mountain with some trolls. But to say that, like, Frodo and Sam's thing is, like, to say that, like, Frodo and Sam have, like, the exact same kind of friendship as, like, Frodo and Aragorn is just fucking lying. It's just not true. And that, like, this is, like, almost as far as I got into the video, because he, like, brought up that quote, and I was like, oh, I wonder what, like, C.S. Lewis actually says about this. And I was looking into it, reading the whole thing, and it was like, oh, that's, like, a crazy misrepresentation of what C.S. Lewis said. I wonder why he didn't break down the rest of the passage that took 10 seconds to Google. But anyways, we'll get into this. Sam has a wife? I know, I just mentioned that. Let's get back to the video.
Is friendship
Gay!
with June now behind us?
Also,
some call it.
Does this guy not look like Timu Ryan Reynolds? I can't not think about it. I think it's the glasses specifically. Like, he looks like he's in Free Guy or something. Like, the glasses and, like, the hair. Does he not? Does this not look like AI generated Ryan Reynolds?
Pride. There was another fresh round of national conversation about LGBT representation.
Oh yeah, hold on. Let's look at. I wanted to do this because this is, like, the condescending tone that I was talking about, where it immediately kind of puts me off because I, like, on top of him, like, cherry picking that quote from C.S. Lewis to, like, fit his need. The thing he says here about pride, I might need to turn this up because it sounds quiet in my headphones. I don't know if it's quiet on the stream. It's boosted as loud as I can get it. His video is just quiet. He didn't turn his video up to 6 dB, which is industry standard. If you're editing a video, turn up the audio to 6 dB in your editing software, because that'll make it sound good. But I have my headphones turned up all the way. Baby-faced Ryan. Yeah. But let's let this bit replay real quick.
There was another fresh round of national conversation about LGBT representation in popular media. And I came across this June now behind us. Friendship
Gay!
with June now behind us. Some call it pride. There was another fresh...
I don't know why the way he says that really put me off immediately. Where it's like, with June behind us, some call it pride. And it's like, dude, it's Pride Month. What the fuck's wrong with that? Why is that such an issue for you? That's the thing to me that screams, oh, we're already coming at this from a level of disingenuousness. Because, like, if you can't even, like, rattle with the fact that LGBTQ plus people exist and that they are around, that pride is a thing. I don't know, when you're talking about, like, the nuances between positive masculine friendships and them turning into something that's gay, I'm not going to take your word at face value. Like, you've immediately lost Logos with me. You have no credibility here. Why? Or ethos. I think Logos is, like, the logistical. It's like the sources one. But, yeah. It's that immediate thing, like, this... As soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, this is the kind of guy who, like, whenever June rolls around, he's like, why don't we have a Veterans Month? And it's like, we have 2. And a federal holiday. What do you want? But with that out of the way, we can keep going.
Fresh round of national conversation about LGBT representation in popular media. And I came across this nightmare. Frog and Toad, remember them? These books by Arnold Lobel, who was gay by the way, were among my favorites as a kid. My memories with these books aren't visceral, but they're more like fingerprints. I still feel the warmth of these stories. And it has a lot to do with the sincerity and simplicity of that friendship on those pages. But like so many other popular stories and friendships, people like to twist their meaning. And I'll tell you why.
So, he's doing the same thing where he's like, people want to twist their meaning. I don't know if you know this, but stories, by their nature, by the way that we exist as humans, are interpretive. Even if, like, the interpretation is very, very linear, they are still interpretive. So, like, when he says, like, twist their meanings, somebody that, like, is, like, projecting... By the way, Toad and Frog being written by, like, a gay author, and, like, there being, like, kind of homoerotic... Not even homoerotic, but, like... like, kind of, like, gay friendship undertones there. That doesn't mean that they have to be gay, but that, taken into context, can, like, reframe the entire situation. And then, like, even so, it's the same thing I was saying earlier with Frodo and Sam and, like, teenagers writing them off as gay, or, like, the the people that are into Wincest or whatever the fuck that is in the supernatural community. But, like, the people who write that off, even if they do, so, like, just because someone, like, has this idea in their mind of, like, Frog and Toad, and they're like, in my mind, Frog and Toad, like, they're, like, living together, they're, like, best buddies, they're probably a little bit gay, they probably have, like, a little bit of overlap between them being really close friends and them being, not exactly gay lovers, but just, like, you know, it's like Frodo and Sam, there's something more there, right? Even if they aren't directly lovers, there is something more than just simply friendship there, and there's nothing wrong with that. And even if you go through it and you're like this guy, and you're like, I don't want gay near me with a 10-foot pole, and you just see them as, like, two amphibians that happen to dress like old people, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Art is interpretive. You're allowed to look at it differently than someone else. But the second you are like, you're not allowed to interpret it any way other than the way I interpret it, shut the fuck up. I don't care about your opinion anymore. That's not how this works. You can tell me what your interpretation is. You can argue for your interpretation. You can try and convince me that your interpretation is the most true to faith one of what the work represents and what the story is trying to get across. But that doesn't mean you're, like, objectively right. Like, this is all the people who, like, over the past month with Fallout Season 2 being out, where they're talking about Fallout, and they're like, Fallout is a satire of capitalism, it's a satire of communism, it's a satire of something warmongers, something America. And it's like, these are all kind of true in shades of gray. It's a big series. It covers a lot of ground, literally and metaphorically. It covers so many different topics that all of these things are true. Trying to boil it down to, like, one single interpretation and one singular meaning is kind of pointless. And you're kind of just running a fool's errand, and you're trying to make yourself sound smarter and more correct than every single buddy else in the room, which is just dumb and lame. It's much more interesting and much more productive to be inclusive of these different ideas and perspectives. That's the point of perspective? Exactly! Like, these different ideas, these different perspectives overlap specifically so that each person who interacts with this thing will come away with it with a different idea. And there's nothing wrong with that. Come on. Free country. Believe what you want to believe. As long as what you believe isn't, like, literally the death and second-class citizenship of other people based on their beliefs, race, or personhood. If you put 3 humans in a room, you get 6 different opinions? Yeah. Dude, I argue with people about God of War Ragnarok to this day. The amount of people I see who are like, Kratos is the god of hope now. And I'm like, no! That's not the point! The point is that he is still the god of war. At least the point to me. Okay, I won't go off and do the thing I'm claiming that he's doing. To me, the point is that he is still the god of war. He has just learned that because he is the god of war, he does not have to be defined by what he was as the previous god of war that he was in Greece, where he just murdered everybody, and that the god of war can be whatever he makes it out to be. So if he wants to be the god of war that fights to protect people and save people and keep people alive. He can choose to be that god of war. He doesn't have to be chained down by this previous version of himself. To me, that's what it means. It's interpretive. I guess you could have he's no longer the god of war, he's the god of hope now. I think that's, in my perspective, I think that's kind of lame, and I think that's kind of like TikTok brained, where you're like seeing things incredibly literally, and you're not like digging into like the literature that is going on in the script of God of War Ragnarok. And I'm probably over-intellectualizing it. And I know most people who interact with a game series like God of War don't care for that level of nuance or like methodology in thinking. But that's just how I feel about it. And I will argue until I'm out of breath about why the way I feel about it is correct, but that's just how I'm going to feel about it. And that's how that is. Anyways, who cares if Frog and Toad are gay? Let's keep going.
Why they do this. Friends are fellow travelers. We recognize ourselves in them, and when friendships are healthy, we reveal ourselves and aren't punished for it. That's a very simple fact of most male and female relationships. There will always be some higher degree of scrutiny over the pairing, and in many cases, the friend zone, or the failure of a romance to come about, is taken as rejection or punishment. Men, like women, need space for relationships free of this factor, where none of this is taken into account. Friendship is about affection, but you hear it all the time. Sam and Frodo from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings is a perfect example. They must be gay. These two men couldn't possibly travel Middle-earth together, sacrificing life.
Again, the only people I hear this opinion from seriously are like teenagers. Most of everyone else I've seen say this opinion are either people that like aren't worth listening to, or they're doing it tongue in cheek, like Sean Austin, where it's like, come on. Do we care that? like to me, that screams like insecurity, where it's like, no, they can't be gay because I see myself in them. And if they are even like 1/10 gay, if they are even like a tiny, tiny bit gay, that makes me a tiny, tiny bit gay. And I don't like that, which there's nothing wrong with it. That's why there's nothing wrong with being gay to begin with. You are allowed to be whoever you are. And we live in shades of gray. And there's nothing wrong with being a tiny, tiny bit gay. It's okay. Then by association, it makes me gay too. Yeah. The idea that like, because that like even goes further. Like if you're a heterosexual dude, that you can't relate to a gay character, which is just incorrect. That's not how that works. In the same way, plenty of gay people have things that they find relatable to straight characters. You can relate to a gay character, and you can even relate to the friendship and or romance they have with other gay characters. As a straight guy, that doesn't make you gay, that makes you human. And that's a really important distinction that I feel like a lot of people don't care about, and they just shut their ears and they go like, I'm not gay, get away from me, go away. They're like is it Tom Cruise in Family Guy, where he's like, you can't catch up to me, gay thoughts. It's like a really, really fragile bridge, and they're so scared of it collapsing because like their entire worldview and their entire self of personhood is built on that very, very fragile bridge, which is why the whole idea of like breaking away, stripping away toxic masculinity and kind of embracing these different colors and shades of gray of masculinity and femininity are kind of important to our society, because they help people live more fuller, more free lives that are more assured of themselves. Yeah. Do you see them anyway? People will ask, do you see them any different than when you didn't know they were gay? Yeah, it's like that thing where if somebody will be like super into something, you see this a lot. I have this happen a lot with extended family when it comes to politics, where like I'll be talking to somebody and I'll be like, we'll be agreeing on everything. They will agree with me on like the things I'm saying, like from a political theory kind of viewpoint. They'll agree with me on every single step of the way, and like the second I mention the word like leftist, social, demo, something, Fox News rage bait, they immediately turn off, and they're like, ugh, no, that's communism. And it's like, dude, you just sat here and agreed with me for 10 minutes, and you're going to turn around and throw it all away just because, like, Fox News told you that it's gay to drink out of a straw? Shut the fuck up, man. The man who voiced Batman was a gay man. The voice? Yeah, Kevin Conroy. Plenty of people love Kevin Conroy. But you got to break that fragile bridge.
and limb, comfort and safety for anything other than sexual attraction. And my God, the eye contact when they speak to one another and cry in their shared suffering. The word toxic gets quite abused, but it's actually so toxic to suggest this. And it comes from the very people who complain the loudest about straight men's emotionally withholding nature. Men should cry more. Why can't they share their feelings? But if they do, gay.
Wait, hold on. Wait a second. This is gay. This is really gay. Yeah, this is even gayer.
Again, even if, like, you're getting that reaction, if you're offended by that and you feel the need to pull away, that is, like, that fragile, toxic, masculine bridge inside of you buckling, because even the idea of being perceived as gay is such a ruination to the foundation of your character that you just can't stand it, which is a bigger problem unto itself, rather than the idea of, oh, I might be perceived as gay, versus just like hiding away from it forever. No, that's not what anybody's saying, and if you get offended, I think it's more on you, man. Yeah, it's like very much, he's like trying to describe like the wokeism high schoolers and people like not taking it very seriously, calling things gay, as like what the toxic masculine idea of like being vulnerable makes you gay. Which is funny. This is like somebody who I think is coming from like a very specifically like kind of conservative background. And I mean, I don't know anything about this guy. This is just the vibe I'm getting off of him. Off of Timu Ryan Reynolds. I can't talk. I'm missing half my teeth. But like, this is somebody who hasn't like sat down and even tried to interact with like literature and ideas that kind of contrast and talk in the opposite direction of his worldview. And I can tell, because if you know what the other side's point of view is, you will know how to properly deconstruct it to argue against it. That's like some Sun Tzu shit, you know your enemy. You don't know your enemy. That is the case for almost all of the people who make videos like this. This guy seems to be less so of like doing like the grifter thing. This is like something that he probably believes in. I think he's just misinformed. But when we get to somebody like Arch, who's like a down to rights Nazi, or like Synthetic Man, who's like a self-proclaimed Nazi incel, and is like just straight up grifting, or like Andy Pants Gaming, who is legitimately grifting, they kind of fall back on these like same things, like Andy Pants, where he's like, it's gay, it's black, it's retarded, it's queer, they want to fuck children, and they love furries. And it's like, dude, you don't know the first step of like gender theory or like equality rights, the struggles that different communities have gone against to get to where they are now and to where they're trying to continue going. And because you don't even understand where that's coming from, you will never be able to talk about it in any way that isn't just straight up reactionary and hateful. The only way that they can react to something like someone that isn't them in their group existing is just with straight vitriol, because they have nothing else. They don't know anything about how any of these theories play into society and the critiques that they are making. So they're doing this like emotional foot-first reaction that just kind of reveals how little they know on the subject. They will try to make themselves sound smart, like this guy quoting C.S. Lewis, but like the entire point of that passage is just entirely missed in the example he's using it for. Know your enemy. Read The Art of War. Because that shit applies to ideological wars as well. Not that it should be a war, but like, come on. Not only that, but it does dehumanize these people when you say these harmful things. Yeah, that too. Like, it has like this cascading effect that's built on fear and built on the unknown. Like, people are fearful of things that they don't understand. Barda. If you understand something, you're not going to be as afraid of it, right? And it's like where they get lost, because they just don't understand it, and they just go with the the first emotional response they have, and it goes nowhere, because all they can do is say the exact same reactionary bullshit. You look at Andy Pants Gaming. He's saying, I mean, he's grifting as well, but he's been saying the same exact shit for 3 years now. Black, gay, retarded, AI-generated image of Master Chief in a wheelchair with a pride flag. We're done here. And it's like, you can't even like come close to properly criticizing the other side of the argument because you don't know it. I'm going to stop nailing that point home and just move on, but that's what it is.
Than all the men getting in a big pile and having sex with each other. Okay, sorry, my bad. Everyone back in the pile.
Back in the pile, everyone! We're going back to the pile.
C.S. Lewis, a warm friend of J.R.R. Tolkien for a time, wrote about this in explicit terms in his book, The Four Loves: Affection, Friendship, Eros, and Charity, which lays out a vision of masculine friendship in Chapter 2. In it, he starts off, it has actually become necessary in our time to rebut the theory that every firm, serious friendship is really homosexual. It applies perfectly to Frog and Toad and also to Sam and Frodo when Lewis...
Again, I kind of went over this way earlier, but like, just because we understand that not every close male friendship is homosexual in nature doesn't mean that there aren't shades of gray here. Relationships don't work like that. It's not The Sims where you walk up to somebody and you're like, we're friends now. Oh, we're lovers now. Oh, we're married. Oh, I hate you. I'm going to fight you. We're not linear. We don't work like that. You have people that you're closer friends with. You have people that you're not so close friends with. You have people that you have butt sex with. And you have people that you will never look at with an ounce of dignity. Like, the whole point of the nuance that you need for this conversation is that things exist on non-linear paths. Frodo and Sam aren't gay. But what they have is more like the intimate kind of friendship that they have. The relationship that they do have is far more than any friendship that Frodo has with like any other loser at the Shire, right? That doesn't mean that like they have to be gay, but that doesn't mean that there aren't elements of like something greater than just simply friendship either. Like that's where people talk about blood brothers and shit, where they're like, different mother, same balls, whatever the fuck, however it goes. You know what I'm talking about. What you and your teenage friends would say in high school, you'd put in your Instagram bio and you'd be like, hell yeah, and then a week later you get into a fight and you'd be like, oh, that didn't work out. They're not gay, but you can understand where people come from. Yeah, and again, different interpretations exist. No single one is going to be correct. Some will be more correct than others. But if you just say, this isn't true because blank, I say so, he's also doing like an appeal to authority thing where he's like, C.S. Lewis, who was good friends with Tolkien, said this, so therefore, Frodo and Sam aren't gay. It's like, that's not an argument. That's not an argument because you're just taking something else he's saying out of context, devoid of nuance, and applying it loosely onto Frodo and Sam without any like further delvement into there. Maybe he will extrapolate on what's going on here, but so far, he's just kind of taking C.S. Lewis out of context to make it sound like his point is already correct. He has like a point and he's working backwards to justify it. That's what I'm getting so far.
Quips. It cannot be proved, and it cannot be refuted. This chapter is some of C.S. Lewis's most fiery and clearly agitated writing. The very lack of evidence is thus treated as evidence. The absence of smoke proves the fire is only carefully hidden. If there was an invisible cat in the chair, it would look empty, but the chair does look empty.
So, like, the whole point of that is that you can't just make up evidence that isn't real. You can't just hallucinate evidence and then, like, act like it's true. You can't get conspiratorial with it. But that's not what's happening here. The whole point, like, people don't say Frodo and Sam are gay because, like, they imagine that when the camera's not on them, they're fucking. They say that, like, Frodo and Sam have something like a gay relationship because they are closer to each other than perhaps any single two people in Middle-earth. I would go so far as to say the bond between Frodo and Sam is tighter than Sam and the mother of his children. It's not the same kind of love, obviously, but it is a different kind of bond, and that different bond is stronger. It's not being pulled out of nowhere if you read the text itself. I mean, yeah, also that. Like, the complete dismissal of everything going on here. Just back to what I was saying about, like, you can't just, like, say, nuh-uh. That's not an argument. If you don't understand what the argument is to begin with, you cannot refute it. And that's exactly what he's doing here, and he's using a quote taken out of context without any nuance applied onto the thing he's talking about to try and prop up his own argument that barely exists with an appeal to authority, because C.S. Lewis hung out with Tolkien in the past. Are we going to get any quotes from Tolkien that talk about the relationship of Frodo and Sam and how that might play into this? Because I would consider that to be a much stronger source than taking C.S. Lewis's words on a completely different subject, out of context, without nuance, and applying them broadly to Frodo and Sam because C.S. Lewis and Tolkien hung out sometimes. Do you see how, like, the logic, when you, like, put the points on the board, I was gonna say Ricky Stenicki, that's the John Cena movie. Who's the Charlie Kelly bit? When you put the points on the board, like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the points don't go anywhere. And it means nothing, and it makes no sense.
Therefore, there's an invisible cat in it. There are so many great male friendships in literature and TV. Sherlock and Watson, Corey and Sean from Boy Meets World, Arnold and Gerald, Jon Snow and Sam Tarly, Jay and Silent Bob, Turk and JD from Scrubs.
There's nothing gay about it in our eyes.
And there's different flavors of friendship. The bromance is the TV sitcom default. It's guys backslapping, being vulgar, venting about their wives, and just having fun. Sometimes these on-screen relationships toy with the gay question as a matter of comedy. JD and Turk.
Okay, them satirizing it like they do in Scrubs is what I'm talking about. Where these friendships are not linear. It's not The Sims. They're not gay. They're not butt-fucking. They're not sucking each other off in the janitor closet. The janitor's doing that with whatever extra he could find. But what they have, their friendship that they have, is more than like any other friendship. Because it is more than any generic friendship, but it's not gay. You know, it could be kind of gay-coded without being gay, you know? A very superficial way of looking at male friendships. Yeah, it's like this, he has to throw up like this no homo Jesus. I don't know why I throw Jesus into there. I'm thinking of like the Jesus pillow, leave room for Jesus. But he's like throwing up this no homo blanket in between the characters and saying, no element of love whatsoever. And it's like, come on. There are gradients here. This plays on multiple different factors. Why is that like hard to accept? Outside of the fact that you have like some kind of insecurities about it, and you're like, if they are even a little tiny little bit diluted gay, that makes me a little tiny bit diluted gay, and I don't like that. I always realize that like the videos I'm watching could be like 8 minutes shorter, because as we go through the video, I understand that like they say something basic, I'll talk about it and explain exactly what their points are going to be, and then they just spend another 10 minutes talking about those points, and then I just have to continue to say the same thing over and over again. Because I don't think there's anything new that's going to be added to this conversation.
Turk being a good example of that.
You're the only man who's ever been inside of me.
Whoa. Playing grab ass is part of the shtick, and that's a thing that guys do with select friends. Then there's the service buddy, the guy who you work with and share a mission. Castiel and Dean from Supernatural, Band of Brothers, Sam and Frodo. Sometimes we choose one another's company, but sometimes we don't. In the Fellowship of the Ring movie, Samwise Gamgee is sort of deployed by Gandalf to accompany Frodo because he heard about the ring through the window. But it's a relationship overflowing with a sense of duty, shared.
Okay. That is a super incredibly reductionist argument of what Sam's relationship to Frodo is, and I hope he expands on that. To say that Samwise was assigned to Frodo, and it's like a purely dutiful relationship. That's just not true. Samwise tells us multiple times that he's doing it for Frodo, not because I have a duty to you, because I care about you, specifically.
Love for something bigger than themselves and a mutual respect. Lovers are normally face to face, friends side by side. Men thrive in labor.
Look at the thumbnail of this video. That's all I'm going to say. He brought back quotes from that C.S. Lewis thing. Hey, but he's still taking it completely out of context and devoid of all the nuance. Lovers face to face? I don't know how to tell you this. Frodo and Sam spend a lot of time face to face. Obviously, they're not kissing. And again, I don't think that they're gay, but like to be this completely like this level of no homo allowed. No, keep your socks on. It just reeks of like I can't even be remotely understood as gay because then I'll have to like go out and suck dick, and I don't want to do that, man. Like that's not how it works. That's not how it works. You're okay. You're okay, Timu Ryan Reynolds. You're not gonna like turn gay tomorrow if you're like, okay, maybe Frodo and Sam have like a little bit of a gay thing going on. Like they don't have to be in love, like romantic love. They're gonna get married or whatever to be a little bit gay. That's not how that works. I would argue that like to have such a close and specific bond with a person like is gay conceptually. A little bit, like it has to be, you know? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the main thing. There's nothing wrong with having that kind of level of like gay familiarity with someone. Nothing at all. If you have that with a friend, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? Don't feel like you have to like hold yourself back and have to go no homo. Because that just kind of restricts you from having a deeper and more secure and more having a stronger bond with the friends that you do have. And it keeps you together for longer. And you feel like you can trust them more. And you feel like you have somebody in your life who you can rely on. Even if you're not like intimately involved with one another. And there's, again, nothing wrong with that. The fact that we're having to sit here and say there's nothing wrong with being gay in 2026. Oh, God, I hate this country.
Together. The best friendships I ever formed were in shared suffering on Boy Scout trips. In the rain, in the cold, in the wind, trying to set up a tent together in the dark. And men used to work together more regularly side by side before the digital era. I'm very lucky to work from home and have a keyboard warrior job, but it's isolating. I imagine many of you out there
Also, that kind of description of male friendships as like entirely, that's kind of like C.S. Lewis was talking about, where he was like, friendships are born over like shared commonality. Like you're friends because you're going out fishing, or you're playing Helldivers, or you're, I don't know, whatever the fuck, you're painting Warhammer minis together. A little gay if you ask me. But like your friendships are born of like these commonalities you share. But like that is like kind of the way C.S. Lewis takes it. But, like, Tolkien specifically lays out about how, like, this, like, love that people share for each other that is strong. Like, loving your friend is stronger than the most evil in the entire history of the world. That is, like, the entire message of Lord of the Rings at the end of the day. Is that the love you have for somebody else, even if it's just platonic, you're not bumping uglies. You don't have to. Frodo and Sam aren't fucking. But that love that they feel for each other, that genuine, empathetic, compassionate love is stronger than the most evil in the entirety of mystical, mathematically, mystical, magical history, evil, whatever the fuck. Out of all the evil in the world, their compassion for one another was stronger than it. So, like, by reducing male friendships to, like, this exclusively, like, oh, we have shared suffering. We went and did fishing together. We load up the Xbox and we play Helldivers. That takes away, not only does it take away from Tolkien's work that you're trying to, like, authoritize over, but it's just reductive of male friendships to begin with. And that makes your relationships with your friends weaker. If you have that kind of mindset for it. That's just not, like, why do you think the Spartans butt fucked? They weren't doing it because they, like, were genuinely in love. I mean, probably eventually. But, like, they did it because they knew that, like, having something more than just shared suffering, having, like, that compassion of, like, I want to live and die for the guy standing next to me would make you a stronger unit. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't even have to be gay. Sometimes, just bounce on it as friends.
Experience the same thing. I hated my cubicle job in my 20s, but I loved the presence of my cubicle mate, Dave, and his Star Wars bobbleheads and daily jokes about Grand Admiral Thrawn. There was a camaraderie and a kind of bromance that it was kind of surface level, but like the warmth of a fire, you can feel it most sharply when it's no longer in your life. Men are, in fact, dealing with a crisis of loneliness in the modern world. The culture...
I think men who have the inability to look inward and reflect on our place in society and the harm that, like, patriarchal, toxic masculine systems, stay with me, have done to men themselves. Things like what this guy is saying, the kind of, like, talking points he's espousing, where you have to have, like, this 10-foot outward approach to friendship. Like, your friendship has to be based on, like, the radiance between you, that, like, you happen to be in the same place, you happen to be fishing together, you happen to be in the same cubicle or the same office, like cubicle junction or whatever, to be friends. That makes men lonelier. That's not helping anybody. That's like classic toxic stoicism that keeps people separated from each other. I'm gonna go back to God of War Ragnarok. That's the thing that was making Kratos miserable. He hated life. He tried to kill himself multiple times. And he had nothing to live for. And he wanted to be a secluded hermit until Faye and Atreus taught him that there is more to life if he accepts and invites other people into him. He doesn't have to sit down and get married and have a gay harem with everybody, but having people in your life for the sake of having them in your life and for the sake of feeling compassionate and empathy towards them makes your life infinitely less lonely. The kind of thing we're talking about here, that Geeky Stoics is talking about here in this video, is the exact kind of thing that makes men lonelier and makes their lives more suffering. Adds to the suffrage of men going through this. If you happen to be a young guy, just have friends. You don't need to be like, make a big deal of it, of like, oh man, if we hang out too often, I'm gonna think we're gay. No, dude. You just care about people. Just care. If you find it within yourself to be empathetic and compassionate for other people, you will find all the reasons to love and be loved and find a million more motivations to keep living in this world and trying to make it a better place. Caring about people and caring about other people, no matter who they are, no matter if you are married to them or if they just happen to live in the same world as you, will always bring more joy and happiness into your life. That's one of the things Tolkien talked about all the time. We're so focused about Tolkien, but we didn't learn a fucking lesson from it. All you care about is yourself at that point? Yeah, like, to have that kind of reductionist view is like this selfish, no-homo way of living that does nothing for you. It's just kind of like a loser mentality, I gotta be honest. Like, if you go through that and you don't have, like, that kind of change of pace, I don't know, man. Just think about it. Because it's not that big of a deal. It really isn't. And the only people that are telling you that it's a big deal are people that are lonely. Like, look at this guy. I'm not trying to pick on Timu Ryan Reynolds. I know, I get the irony. I'm not trying to pick on him, but like, he just said by his own omission that he's lonely because he works from home and he doesn't, because his idea of friendship is entirely based around proximity, where he has to be at the office, the workplace with people to be friends with them. You know what? I work at an office that's like technically lonely for me because I don't talk to a single person there because most of the people at my workplace are like in a different generation from me. They're way older than me. And I have like not a whole lot of points of relatability and stuff to them. So outside of being like acquaintances, I'm not good friends with anyone like that. But I have other friends that I care about that I go out of my way to interact with and be a part of the lives of. That keeps me from kind of ever feeling like that. Like, I never have to feel lonely because I know that there's people out there that I care about and that by the inverse transitive fucking whatever property are going to care about me. Compassion breeds compassion. Every time. The only people who, like, if you're giving someone compassion and they don't return it, they are just selfish or misanthropic. They just hate other people. And hey, maybe that works out for them, but like, if somebody is trying to give you compassion and your immediate urge is to be like, no, that might be gay, then you're the only person who can be blamed for your loneliness and isolation is you yourself.
Changed, but so did the economy, which has elevated the skills of loner types and diminished the contributions of men eager to work side by side toward building something or destroying things. The pleasure in cooperation, in talking shop, in the mutual respect and understanding of men who daily see one another tested is biologically valuable. One of the key features of worthwhile friendships is that the circle expands to include others. C.S. Lewis wrote that the opening line of a friendship is, "What? You too? I thought I was the only one." Things begin in a shared love for something and grow from there. For C.S. Lewis,
I'm going to let him keep going because I've already, the things I'm going to continue to say are things I've just been saying. But again, he's doing the reductionist thing where he's taking these like very, very small kind of workplace acquaintance type friendships that might grow into something else, but he's reducing all male friendships to that same kind of idea. And then also still applying it to a pair like Frodo and Sam, who very much do not have the same kind of workplace acquaintance relationship with like Merry and Pippin. So it's just like a straight apples to oranges type thing here. But he's writing it all off and reducing everything, because if you apply nuance and understanding to any of these like aspects, even remotely, it falls apart very quickly.
and J.R.R. Tolkien, they were opponents at Oxford on a matter regarding the English language curriculum, but they found out that they were both obsessed over Icelandic myth and language, and so they formed a club around it called the Coalbiters. No one is going to find a friend based purely on selfish motivation like ending their loneliness. It has to begin with a passion and an interest in other people. Men do want to work together and feel like they're part of something. The Stoic Seneca touched on.
I think that's true, but acting like this like singular stoic way of living and way of making acquaintances and friends based on your proximity to one another only gets you so far. Like, you're not going to be building a kind of Frodo and Sam relationship with somebody just by like having a shared interest with, you know, the people you're around. I've been on work sites with like 70 other people all working at the same time. We all have that shared suffering. We're all doing a fucking grueling 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. night shift, lugging heavy boxes all night long. It's not like I have like a lifelong lasting friendship with all 70 of those people. Maybe one or two of those people who like I had not only like the shared suffering of what we were doing, but we had like a greater connection and kind of compassion for things outside of the workplace. Those are people I might keep up with for years at a time. But like that idea of just shared suffrage will be enough to get you through. It will never be enough. At least for like the kinds of like really worthwhile and like life-changing friendships that you will have with certain people when you make yourself vulnerable to them.
On this, when he described seeking out friends just so that you won't die alone, anyone thinking of his own interests and seeking out friendship with this in view is making a great mistake. Those kinds of friends...
What is that quote from? Why are we just... See what I'm talking about? Like, it's like he throws up a quote. He doesn't even say who it is. I'm assuming it's C.S. Lewis. He's been quoting exclusively C.S. Lewis this whole time, out of context, without nuance. He just throws up a quote that might be about something else, but he's like attributing it to what he's talking about without any context and without even citing what the quote is from. In the same way where I'm like, he can't understand what like the queer argument is for a character like Frodo and Sam, or for characters like Frodo and Sam, because he doesn't understand it. It hurts me, and it makes it harder. I mean, explicitly so. It makes it harder for me to like interact with his point of view when he struggles to support it with any substantive elements. Tell me what you're talking about, man. You can't just throw up a thing in quotations and be like, yeah, that proves me right.
are fair weather and clingy. The fellowship that forms in Tolkien's Rivendell is not an amalgamation. It is part of the masculine instinct to take up arms with the guy next to you. We long for courage, and so often...
Also, if we're using Tolkien as a basis and a foundation for our masculine circle, this example of like the masculine urge to take up arms is refuted by Tolkien himself in a character like Éowyn. So clearly, it's not exclusively a masculine urge to want to take up arms and be a part of something greater than yourself. Because if you build your relationships and friendships with other men based on nothing but solely the proximity and like awareness you have of one another, you're gonna go nowhere. Tolkien refutes what you're talking about, bro!
And we're just waiting for the guy next to us to get the ball rolling. Someone has to say I first.
Éowyn and I forget her name. Aragorn's side piece at the beginning. Well, he's not her side piece. She stays around to the end. But whatever the... I forget the elf's name. Tolkien has said it's better to be a gardener than to fight in a war. Yeah, he was very much anti-war as well. Like, applying this, like, retroactive masculine urge onto Lord of the Rings is like some crazy red pill stuff that completely goes against the point of his view. So like to take Tolkien's work and use that as a basis of authority for your point when Tolkien's own words and scripture goes against what you're trying to say, that's just disrespectful to the entire Lord of the Rings story, to the entire mythology that's built up there, and the characters, and the poetry, and the prose that goes into them. It sucks so hard, because you can't tell me you care about Lord of the Rings or you care about Tolkien and you respect him as an author when you were bastardizing his point of view so hard. Again, art is subjective, it's interpretive, whatever. We are so far beyond interpretation that we are just retroactively applying things that don't exist. We are hallucinating a cat in a box. To use the C.S. Lewis quote that he was using. If we want there to be a fire, then the smoke must be the cause of a fire. Or whatever the fuck it was about. You're doing the exact same thing that you're trying to say that queer people are doing, but with less evidence and less authority to stand on. Self-reflect. It's not gay to be in touch.
Truly meaningful friendships, they are not closed. They invite others into it.
Wrong. You can very much have meaningful friendships that are closed. Frodo and Sam. The friendship, the relationship that Frodo and Sam have is not the same relationship Frodo has with Aragorn. It's not the relationship that Frodo has with Legolas. I think Legolas and Frodo share a single exchange, at least in the movies. I don't think... They might not even talk at all, if I remember right. The relationship that Frodo has with Gimli, it's not even remotely the same as Sam. Now, to be fair, Frodo and Sam can have a wider ring of friends, which includes the rest of the Fellowship. But to say that, like, Frodo and Sam's, the bond between the two of them is completely the same as the bond between Sam and Gimli, that's just totally wrong. You're just totally, like, you are, like, reducing the need of these, like, different connections that people have in a web of people so hard to be so anti-homo. I don't have anything else to say. It just reeks of like that same kind of fragile bridge insecurity. And it's just a continuation of that.
Men getting together like Lewis and Tolkien did to share their writing becomes a campfire that other men want to join, and that's the group that became the Inklings, which helped birth The Hobbit and the Screwtape Letters and Narnia. Friendships have to be about something, and that can be literature or fantasy sports or soccer, video games, or war reenactments. You will not find the warrior, the poet, the philosopher, or the Christian by staring in his eyes as if he were your mistress. Better fight beside him, read with him, argue with him, pray with him. Masculinity requires doing things.
Okay, masculinity Stoic masculinity? Sure. Friendships, masculine male friendships, do not require just shared suffering and proximity to be full of depth and love and harmony and compassion. No. Full stop. This is not even an interpretive thing. This is not even a thing. This is just wrong. That is a super reductionist point of view that leads to more men feeling lonely. The thing you are trying to solve by doing this stoic crap, misquoting C.S. Lewis without any context, nuance, or even saying where the quote is from, completely bastardizing the message of Tolkien's work. No, you don't get to have this take, because that's not even what Tolkien's take was. Don't fucking try to intellectualize and lay on these, like, legendary authors for authority when you can't even, like, distill the most basic point of view that they obviously had. What?
It's not just setting things right or bringing order to chaos. It involves saying yes when you might want to say no to your kids, to your wife, to your community.
So is, like, Eowyn a masculine stoicist because she said yes instead of, like, hiding? She did not only said yes, she went out of the way to, like, subvert everyone in her life that told her no in order to say yes. So clearly it's not exclusively a male thing. If we're using Tolkien as the foundation of all of our masculine stoic traits, clearly that's not true. Just blatantly, outright.
To the guy at work who wants to hang out on Friday when you're tired. When you get locked into despair and saying no and you retreat into yourself, there's nothing there. The world becomes worse off and you need to be a part of it. Men have to be willing to get hurt and to be challenged. I think a lot about...
I don't think you need to have a friendship that's entirely built on, like, being challenged and hurt. That is just so... No, literally the only thing you need is compassion. Like, of course, it's not a good idea to be a shut-in and, like, not interact with anybody whatsoever. But, like, you don't need to, like, go out on, like, a construction site and lug 60-pound bags of concrete in order to feel some sense of community with your fellow man. That's just bullshit. All you need is compassion. If you put compassion into the world, you will get infinite compassion back. Suffering doesn't make you a better person. Yeah. I don't think it necessarily makes you traumatized, but it's like that kind of like that blue collar thing where you see all like these blue collar billionaire defenders on TikTok where they're like, fuck, what do you mean tax the billionaires? I wake up at 4 a.m. every day, I don't see my children, and I work 18 hours a day because I'm a man. And it's like, dude, you're just being taken advantage of. This is not a sustainable way of living that gives you anything except for pain and suffering. You are not made better by being molded by pain and being taken advantage of. If anything, it will make you weaker because you have nothing else to fall back on. And then you get angry and you lash out. And that's the dudes that beat their wives. Like, leading with compassion and truth and honesty and, like, genuine authenticity and care for other people will always be infinitely stronger than I was lugging around concrete today. Hardship is not the exclusive virtue that you need to live by in order to build meaningful, long-lasting relationships, especially like as a dude, as a man. I'm not saying that like suffering and hardship isn't a lens that might lead or lend you like into these kinds of friendships and these kinds of bonds that might stick with you forever. Obviously, in a lot of cases, it does happen to lead that way. But you can't have exclusively suffering as like the singular thing to mold you into the person you are. You need to have like some sense of self-reflection and compassion and care for the world around you. Otherwise, you're just a hermit that hangs out with other hermits by association and proximity, which is not the same thing as like a healthy, sustainable, compassionate friendship that is deep. It is a deep and worthwhile bond that will make your life better for having it. We're not Imperial Fists, we're human beings. Yeah, we're not Space Marines, you know? We can't get off at just like going, yes, brother. Mm-hmm. Good, brother. Like, and that being your only socialization for every 20 years. No, that's just doesn't work. Stoicism might work for some very specific people who have like very specific personalities or whatever, and they have a lower bar for hanging out with specific people. But overall, for the vast majority of people, it is doing more harm than good. Being empathetic and caring about other people, regardless of who they are at all, will make your life infinitely better in almost every extreme.
About strained friendships like that of Boromir and Aragorn, or Bucky and Captain America, even
Don't just tell me you said Aragorn.
007 and 006 before the events of GoldenEye. They're people in tension with one another. They fight, but they're passionate. They care about things. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, America.
I would argue they care about each other. You can't say they care about things and then show us that scene of Boromir and Aragorn when Boromir is dying and say they care about things and not that Aragorn obviously cares about Boromir, who is like heir to the throne of Gondor. And who was just trying to do the best he can by his people and by the lands of Middle-earth. To say they care about things and like it's impossible for them to care about each other without that being gay. No. Do you think the line for Frodo means nothing? What do you think that line means other than he cares about somebody, whether he knows that Frodo is alive or not? That's what that means. And it doesn't mean you're homo. It doesn't mean you're gay. It doesn't mean Aragorn was looking Frodo up and down and being like, hell yeah. No. It means he cared, and there's nothing wrong with that. This like reductionist argument where he keeps trying to pull away, where it's like, they don't care about each other. They just have this sense of duty because they're on the same team and they're doing the same mission. That's bullshit. It's just not true. Emphatically, not true.
Because most explosive frenemy relationship was so warm and so affectionate at one time and so wounded because these men wanted to build a country, but they couldn't agree on the details. They loved one another because in that friend, in that rival, was someone else who cared. That's what I want. I want people in my life who give a damn and want to talk about it. Men...
Okay, you can have giving a damn, but you don't need the prerequisite if you need to be a stoic who earns their place through suffering and proximity. You can just care. You don't need that prerequisite to go along with it, to make it like an actual thing.
Are not often very good at this. It does take time, but that starts with making your values known. It gives somebody else the opportunity to reciprocate. You have to open the door so someone can walk through it. And guys, that relationship might end up looking a lot like Frog and Toad or Sam and Frodo.
And it might look a little bit gay. And there's nothing wrong with that. It can look a little bit gay. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't even have to be gay. It could just look a little bit gay. And that's fine. Nobody cares, really. Nobody should care. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The only way for there to be something wrong with that is you have to believe in your heart of heart that being gay is like just the ultimate wrong in the world. Which is just not true. It's totally hateful and built on ignorance. If you want to talk about men have to like be better at being vulnerable and opening up, understanding that you could be a little bit gay without being gay, that understanding that that's okay, that that's fine, is not a bad place to start. It might be too extreme for some people. Some people that are especially like brushed into this way of life, this like very, very apathetic, stoic way of life, they might need to start somewhere softer and then work up to that. But that's not a bad way of looking at it.
There will be hugs, backslaps, eye contact, tears, anger, and quiet coexistence. You can sit around and play video games, do nothing.
Again, it's completely reductive to say that like me and like the guy I talk with once a month who like sits down and plays video games or whatever is like the same level of bond and friendship that Frodo and Sam had. Because Sam was assigned to work for Frodo or whatever. Bitch, he wasn't doing that out of like like his duty to Middle Earth. No, he did it for Frodo. Aragorn did it for Frodo. To quote Optimus Prime, be strong enough to be gentle. That's not Optimus Prime, that's Peter Cullen's brother, who said be strong enough to be gentle, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the strength is not machismo. It's not puffing your chest out. Because if you are strong, you don't need to prove that. If you're strong and you know yourself, you don't need to prove that you're a big tough guy. To be strong is to be vulnerable and to be gentle with other people. And be allowed to be gentle without, like, recoiling from yourself in the process. Might as well be a famous Optimus Prime. I don't know if he ever used it in a Transformers thing. I'd be interested to know that. I just know him talking about it in, like, where he's, like, talking about when he got hired for Prime. But yeah.
Or go out on an adventure. You share one another's company. Now, why does the culture try to corrupt and deride friends?
Okay. Full stop. Trying to say that there's like some gay elements to Frodo and Sam is not corrupting male friendships. There's nothing wrong with your friendship being a little bit gay, or people interpreting close male friendships as a little bit gay. Because that doesn't mean that they're right. It doesn't mean that Frodo and Sam are now automatically gay if everybody like is under the assumption they're gay. That doesn't mean that's what that has to be. But, like, reducing that entire argument to gay people are trying to corrupt male friendships. That is doing way more harm than saying men should be vulnerable ever could. If you want to make men specifically feel lonely and feel like they have no place to go because they have to hold themselves to this stupid, arbitrary, stoic standard constantly. Otherwise, they're gay! No! Otherwise, they'll be a little bit gay, and that's such a bad thing. Because they've been corrupted by the woke. If you believe that, that is so much more harmful than compassion and empathy ever will be. Full stop. This is doing way more harm than what he's attributing it to.
Friendship. One of C.S. Lewis's most bold claims in The Four Loves about this is that friendships are a threat to power and collectivist tyranny. When you form a clique, it discriminates and sets up walls around it about who is a good fit and who isn't. It's selective and values-based, and those values can be bad or they can be good. And what he feared most was sort of a quasi-communist world.
There it is. You heard it here first, folks. C.S. Lewis and by transitive property, Tolkien think that the woke agenda is trying to make your friendships gay because something communism needs you to be split up. Comparing Nazism with queerdom? Yeah. Again, we're being super reductionist because we have to, because any nuance completely breaks apart this point. Yes, in the most reductive way possible, a clique, a social unit, a social hierarchy that's like formed, a like societal structure that's formed has like inherent biases for certain people. A queer space will have a bias towards like people that are homophobic, obviously, because the homophobic people hate them. Why would they want to invite homophobic people into their camp? A group of teachers and school children will be exclusive of pedophiles, because why would you want a pedophile with a bunch of school children? Nazis will be exclusive of basically everyone on the planet because they hate everybody. And reducing the reducing the exclusivity of Nazis or like the Klan of minority groups to being the same as like queer representation that excludes homophobic people, as like the same kind of cliquey nature, and using C.S. Lewis and by some extension Tolkien as like an authoritative figure on like why those are equally bad things because communism. I don't feel like I need to sit here and explain. I hope whenever this is like wherever and you're watching this, that you have the brain capacity to... That doesn't sound so mean or reductive myself. This is just coming from such a bad faith place. And it makes no sense. It makes no sense unless you exist in a place where being super reductive and boiling down communists and woke and Nazis or whatever into being like the same sort of exclusionary cliques that hate bonds. So by extension, woke communists hate male masculine stoicism. I'm assuming that's where he's going with this. It's just so incredibly bad faith. We're not even at the point of like understand your ideological enemy. We're at the point of just like, no, my ideological enemy is this. Without any like backing it up. My ideological enemy are woke communists.
World in which all men are companions, but none are friends. Which is to say, they are...
Ooh, I hate that so much, because back to the quote of C.S. Lewis that he was, or like the passage from C.S. Lewis that he was quoting at the very beginning, his idea of masculine stoicism, of men are only friends by their shared suffrage and like position in the world, their proximity to one another makes them friends, is what he's just fucking said. That men are companions and not friends. That is what this guy is vouching for. He's saying that men should be companions, and that any deeper kind of vulnerability and compassion that comes through it that might be a little homo is bad. But that's what you're talking about. That's what you're vouching for in this video. How could you say that with a straight face and even remotely take it seriously? God, it's been an hour and a half, and we're not even done with a 10-minute video. Fuck.
Forced into one another's company. Nobody chooses it. Friendship is a miniature rebellion against
Okay, never mind.
larger groups and power structures. And I think deep, affectionate, and values-driven male friendships are in fact threatening to some people. So be a bug in the system. Build friendships. And that starts with...
So you think deep, compassionate friendships of men threaten a system? So that's why gay people write off Frog and Toad and Sam and Frodo as gay? To belittle their male friendships? How is it a threat to the system? It's a threat to communism specifically? So the woke communists are trying to belittle male... Like that's the... He doesn't have anything else to say about how it threatens these systems. Right?
putting your values out there and purpose for people to see. Let's get it done. Thanks for
Okay, no, he doesn't have any... Because the way he's setting it up there, the woke communist gay people will call a very close bond of men, like Frodo and Sam, Frog and Toad, gay, to reduce their bonds of friendship. We're so afraid of homo that we have bastardized masculine stoicism. We've bastardized the words of C.S. Lewis and the meaning, the message of of Tolkien's work and the relationship between Sam and Frodo and why it is different than the relationship that Sam and Frodo share with any of the other members of the Fellowship, to vouch for living the kind of life that he says is destructive and bad for men. and is causing men to be lonely. But he's vouching for it. He is vouching for the very things he says are so bad. Because woke communists. I'm going to say it again. If you put compassion out into the world, you will get compassion back. Every time. Unless somebody is a misanthrope or they just absolutely reject compassion because they have their own issues. If you put compassion into the world, it will come back to you. The love that two people can have for each other, whether romantic or platonic, is, via Tolkien, the strongest force in the history of everything. It is stronger than the most evil that has ever been waged in the history of creation. That bond. It's okay to love your friends. You don't have to be gay to love your friends. You don't need to share exclusively in suffrage to be, like, strong masculine friends. There's nothing wrong with that. You melt someone down with love. Yeah. Love is 100 times stronger. I've been thinking about this with, like, I don't know necessarily how much I trust the guy because I don't know a whole lot about him, but because he's been blown up and stuff. John Kirikow, that CIA agent that's been, like, blowing up on TikTok with, like, the sped up and slowed down interview clips on TikTok and whatnot, where he was like, I was listening to one of his interviews and he was talking about, like, one of the reasons why he came forward because he whistleblew on, like, America's torture program that the CIA had between, like, 2000 and 2005 or whatever. That, like, one of the reasons he came forward is because, like, when you torture somebody and you, like, hit them with all this suffering, you don't get good results because they will just tell you whatever you want to hear, whether it's true or not. They'll just rattle off 100 things. But if you, like, get to know somebody, if you, like, break them down and you, like, not break them down necessarily, but, like, you get close to them and you, like, learn to love them as a person, they will just tell you what you want to hear because they love you and they appreciate you back. I don't know the validity of it, but, like, one of the stories Kirikow says is about, like, a guy in, I think, Pakistan, where, like, he was, like, training him to be an asset for the CIA, and he spent, like, a few weeks or months or whatever working with him and, like, becoming a good friend of the guy so he could get the guy to, like, turn on the Taliban or whatever. And, like, according to Kirikow, the reason that the guy gave over their secrets to the CIA was because Kirikow was, like, the first person in 5 years to, like, ask about the guy's family. And, like, to me, that's, like, what I think about when stoicism type shit pulls up like this, where it's like, these are people that are ideologically opposed. They are on opposite sides of the war, but being friendly, being compassionate, even if it's, like, under false pretense, whatever. Kirikow's trying to advance the goals of the U.S. state. But, like, even under the false pretense or whatever, using that, like, compassionate approach where you, like, lead with humanity in mind first, with the guy's family in mind first, gets you infinitely further than, like, waterboarding somebody. And that same kind of logic applies here, where it's like, if you think the only way for you to have a substantive relationship with another man is through shared suffering, and not just the shared compassion you have with one another for the sake of being another human being, you will never get nearly as far as you will by having that compassion and opening up and being vulnerable and being allowed to be a human with another human. Infinitely farther, every time. Anyways. We'll end the... This is the end of the clip for YouTube. It's why empires always fall apart. Fear could be effective, but it's only so oppressive. Yeah, that's like the... to go back to a different piece of media, Andor, I forget his name, Nemec, the kid from season 1 or whatever, where he's like, I think it's true. The writing in that show's so fucking good. Dude, hold on. This is going to go off topic. Tom Bissell, the guy who wrote Gears Judgment, he co-wrote Gears Judgment, and then he wrote Gears 4 and Gears 5. He wrote the last 3 episodes of Andor Season 2. Did you know that? How come nobody told me this? How was it possible that a guy who wrote such dog shit as Gears Judgment, Gears 4, and Gears 5, Judgment and 5 way worse than 4, wrote the last 3 episodes of Andor? Season 2, which were not bad episodes. They were very well done. I don't know if he wrote them exclusively by himself. He's credited as the only writer for those episodes. I know he's not the showrunner. He's not the show creator. He's obviously not the creative head. And maybe that's why, because he's working in the framework of somebody else's work. But how the fuck did that guy write Gears 5, which is so, subversive of the rest of the lore in Gears of War that he wrote himself? And then Andor Season 2 is amazing. Anyways, back to Andor. Like, Nemec in Season 1 has that whole monologue where he's talking about how authority has to clamp on hard because it's so unnatural. Because it is such a unnatural way to live that it has to constantly assert itself. And because it has to constantly assert itself, it has to constantly buckle down to keep things from slipping through the cracks, it will inevitably become to crack apart and fall apart. And that's what we've seen with most fascist movements. With, like, the Nazis, we've seen it with Italy, where, like, the second those cracks start forming, and that the empire cannot continue to command itself, because it's trying to do so through exclusively hate, it will fall apart, and it will turn on itself, and it will eat itself alive. Like China has done for, like, the last 2,000 years. Like, what, every 1,000 years, China builds itself up, and then it falls apart? Exactly. Systems like the Imperium are the mess they are? Yeah, the Imperium sucks. They have, like, chaos uprisings because everything sucks so much. Like, if the Imperium was a utopia where people weren't being turned into food, you would have infinitely less chaos uprisings. Like, chaos would probably still exist, but you wouldn't have people that go like, do I want to get turned into a door for eternity? Or do I want to be a world eater? Like, being a world eater still sucks. You're still like a piece of shit space marine with nails in your brain. But you're not a door. You know? Compassion will always get you infinitely further than violence and authority. Full stop. Okay. People need to stop listening to Arch in terms of 40k takes. Well, have I got a video for you here?